I'd love to start in our conversation is witnessing the reopening of Notre Dame for you. I mean, think about this amazing cathedral, an iconic monument to Paris, and you're walking through the gates of this transformed cathedral. Tell me what that felt like.
Thank you, Chad. And this is a really, emotional, was a really emotional moment. You might be aware, our team has worked very closely with the project of reopening Notre Dame and trying to help and facilitate with software and consulting services to do what everybody thought was impossible after the fire. So there was so much damage and, so much work and the fear level of desperation. But the team really dug in and significantly helped to build, the new plans, the 3D models, the simulation, and helping with the whole orchestration, which was really marvelous to see over the last couple of years when I, started to engage first with the project. So I had the great blessing, I will say, to be able to attend a service on Sunday night for the opening of Notre Dame. And walking through that threshold into the cathedral, it was, really a transformation. It was a transformed cathedral in front of my very eyes. It was, almost celestial the way it looked. If you have visited Notre Dame before, it was very dark, very gray, and now everything was light and elevated. And some part of what struck me the most was not only the cathedral that wrapped us into that golden glow, but looking at the people around me and looking at their faces and how elevated they felt just being there. And for all of us looking at each other, we felt like it was a very special moment in history where really people from all parts of the globe, people from all walks of lives were coming together to rebuild what had been lost. So it was a very special moment. And I felt very blessed to be part of it.
Such a beautiful answer. It makes me think, Elisabeth, I never asked you this before, but the nature of your leadership role at Autodesk and the types of things that Autodesk does provide such an amazing tangibility of work. Not all of us can point to the renovation of Notre Dame, but I guess it must be very inspiring that the work you do and the customers and partners you serve are making, designing, building things that are very special in this world.
That's exactly right, Chad. And that's one of my favorite parts of the role. So as the Chief Customer Officer, I get to work with our customers and I have like this front row seat into all their innovation and the amazing things they are doing. And that reaches, as you said, all the way from, iconic projects of Notre Dame to building, new cars, designing EVs, to sustainability impacts, to all the way to doing fabulous animations for, all sorts of movies. What inspires me so much is that all of our customers, they are creating and innovating and making things that have not been done before. It's not just an iteration, but it's really an innovation and thinking about the world, with larger, bigger, and better goals. And then being able to support them, with the innovative software that Autodesk provides, as well as with the work my team does to support them, be it with consulting or customer success work or technical work. That's really inspiring. That lifts me up every day.
Talking about lifting up, one of the very strong aspirational values of Autodesk is trust, transparency, caring. Tell me, Elisabeth, or share with the audience a little bit, how does that manifest itself first to your customers? How can you demonstrate trust and transparency and caring to customers and then partners? I'd love to get your perspective on that.
Yeah, that's a great question, Chad. And that is something that's very important to us, to build those trusted partnerships. And trust is not just like a feely, squishy term. It is really gets expressed through a number of very tangible things you can do. For example, customer listening. So we have a great practice in customer listening and have a set of listening posts where we aggregate, synthesize information from our customers and have action plans on the back of it to really make sure that what we are hearing, that we can put that into action and drive the improvements. It also has transparency. So we are striving to be transparent to our teams and to communicate in a transparent way in terms of, what are we working on? What are we executing on? What are, some of the improvements that what we might be able to provide to them. And then there's, of course, capabilities. So that is for us critically looking into the mirror and saying how good we are we actually in some areas. And it's not only our self-assessment. We, of course, have strong KPIs on the back of that to measure it. And then lastly, about care, really putting the customer front and center in our thinking and then translating our strategies. So all these four need to come together. And we have a structured program around, customer trust, where we, in fact, measure and get feedback from our customers. How are we doing on those four dimensions?
I saw a recent post that you did. I guess this would underscore the trust. You were speaking or kind of reflecting on a discussion you had with the Construction Executive Council. And you made this point, I loved it. You don't hear this often. You said, the favorite part of my job is active listening. Yeah. Tell me about that.
That's very true. So my team lovingly calls me listening post number one. As I get to listen to our customers, either as an executive sponsor for some of our relationships, I get to listen to our partners and then get their feedback as they engage with multiple customers. And then we have a number of different other vehicles like customer advisory boards where we do some deep listening for our customers. I believe listening is an art. There is an art and a science, and both of it needs to come together. And only if we, listen to understand as opposed to listen to respond, will we have the opportunity, to get the feedback in and then, understand what is it really where we're doing great, where are we doing okay, and what are some of the areas where we need to do better. And all of it is good, right? All of it, the balance. You wanna get a good read on the situation, as well as then, as you have the communication with customers, then continuously show progress on that. That builds that trust that you referred to earlier.
I've always noticed, that active listening that you do so naturally must be a superpower for you in the ways to not only communicate the feedback back to your team, but to truly understand the root cause beyond the symptoms of what really is challenging this given customer. Why don't you think it's more prevalent? Why don't we all say active listening is the favorite part of our job? Why is it such a difficult thing right now?
Active listening is hard. This is something, that it's a skill one needs to seriously want to do and one needs to hone. Oftentimes, you like a reality, or you get used to a reality, or you have assumptions on how the world might look like. And we get very comfortable with that. Mm-hmm. And we start to like them a lot. And then active listening challenges our perception and our understanding of that reality. And most of the time, it's not very comfortable. We obviously like to hear all the positive feedback and the wonderful things. But for the most part, it might not be comfortable. And I think we need to allow ourselves to be uncomfortable throughout that active listening process to really have the benefit of getting the information in and harvesting that information.
Love it. Elisabeth, you're very known for the innovative models that you're bringing to the customer, to partners, the new transaction model. I'd love you to touch a little upon some of the things you feel over the last year have been instrumental in engendering this very powerful customer experience.
Yeah, and thank you for mentioning that, Chad. For everybody else, just, a little bit of background. We are in the process of changing on how we transact and engage with our customers. In the past, when, one would sell software, it was very very fine and very accepted to sell it through multiple steps through the channel without having a lot of information about the customer on who is purchasing, how are they using it, and are they successful in doing so. Now, what changed really is in the software as a service world and going more to platform or more to complex solutions, it's critical to understand better what is the value the customer wants to derive. And that needs to start from the very early initial interest, then to, the purchase, and then to the execution. And the model we had in place, we were completely disintermediated from, a large number of our customers not having the visibility, not being able to understand, on how they're really engaging and executing. So with that change, we've been driving over the last year, and it will, stretch into the next year. We are really getting much closer to our customers. We have more of a direct relationship, still working with the channel, still facilitated and enabled by the channel, but much more of a direct relationship. And with that, we have a very different way on how we understand the customer is using the product. Now, as customer success, I have data, I have information, I can correlate the account information to how they actually use the product. Now I can make recommendations. Now I can help customers on their learning journey in new and different ways. And I can further, the outcome they are looking for. It is a big shift, a big change. And I couldn't be more excited because that really allows us to get so much closer to the customer and to the value they want to drive.
What would you say as you're in this transformation right now, as you said, rightfully, will carry into 2025? Any early learnings in that progression or that transformation, that more streamlined experience that you're seeing with the customer or the partner?
Yeah, we're already getting, much better engagement and much better insights from, customers as we have better correlation to the information. So we are starting, the fog is lifting. We're getting better insights. And that is really helpful out of the get-go. And then quite frankly, with that more direct relationship, there is more we can automate, making it easier for everybody, using more modern technology and all the way to, large language model enabled technology to have things that used to be complicated, make them as simple as possible. So all of that is in motion. So I'm very encouraged with, the early learnings and the early insights.
You're very passionate about customer experience, always have been since all of our conversations. And I wonder, in your leadership role as Chief Customer Officer at Autodesk, how do you find the elegant balance between automation, to your earlier point, and AI, and human-led consultation? How do you look at those worlds blending in a way that makes sense for the customer?
Yeah, and I think yes, I'm very passionate about customer experience, and I think there is always more we can do. And I think it's a little bit, of a competitive motion out there in the market on how do we enhance customer experience. And quite frankly, some of the consumer B2C companies are further ahead than us B2B companies. So there's a lot we can learn from them. But having said that, what you mentioned, how do we strike the balance between, a seamless automated AI supported motion and the human motion? And I personally don't think it's an either or. It is really allowing also the customer to have more choices and allowing them, to do things they want to do themselves and engage with, with self-help, allow that to be very seamless, and then allow, for human engagement where it has the biggest impact, the biggest value. I think nobody wakes up in the morning and say, I'm going to log a support case. That's, not your best part of the day. But people wake up in the morning and say, I really need help with an issue. So if we're able to provide answers to them in a way that is seamless and easy and delightful to them and gets them back into their productivity and to their work and to all the things they have on their list, that is a big plus. But if they say, I really need some advice, how do I get advice around a more complex issue? Giving them an avenue to be able to do that as well. So I would go back, Chad, to answer your question, provide customers choice and give them the delightful automated experience and then the choice to engage, with a human where they have, where it makes the most sense.
And Elizabeth, you talked about earlier in some of the answers about getting more data, and as we've looked at this new transaction model, we have more of the customer that we can understand. How do you think about recommending and guiding and the right balance of them having choice, but then also knowing what might make sense for them and guiding them to it? What does that look like for you, maybe now and going into 2025?
Yeah. I think it's an important and very powerful capability of engaging with customers that can be a very sticky motion, right? Because then you have some personalized thread, the golden thread, all the way through and allowing the customer to get more and more and more cumulative value. Now, I will say we are at the very beginning of that journey. So that is something now with having better data and better insights to be able to make better recommendations. And that might happen in two ways. One is in the moment, as you're using AutoCAD, Revit, all of Maya, other tools, Fusion, to have recommendations on saying, have you tried this feature? Or this might help you to get more productive. So that might be in the moment where, you're trying to accomplish something and then giving recommendation to, feature functionality or to a learning component or, things like that. I think that is very powerful to help our users to become more and more proficient. The other part is on an elevated level. If you have, a set of projects with us, to get guidance and advice to say, how can you be more productive across all of your projects? What are your best projects as opposed to the not so good projects? And then making recommendations. And these are some things we have been working on with some powerful capabilities to say, here is some of the secret sauce that you actually have access to, dear customer. And this is why your best projects are your best projects. So there are some practices you may want to replicate.
Love that. Knowing how passionate you are about the customer experience, you also offered recently a pro tip that good customer experience starts with strong cross-functional alignment, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you have always been somebody that interlocks with your peers. Tell me how that, because that's a lot of our audience wants to do, let's call it the outcome handoff really well. The value promise in sales, and then how that elegantly transfers to the value realized. They want to do that, but some are searching for the how. And I'd love to get some perspective from you on somebody that is working that issue very aggressively right now. How do you look at that interlock with your peers to be able to then come back and create a different level customer experience?
Yeah, great question, Chad, because this is exactly as you describe it, what's happening. When you think about marketing, sales, customer success, there are these stovepipes of excellence. And, everybody is working hard to improve and to provide the right engagements. But there are those silos possibly that it is very, very hard to traverse. And the customer might have 3 different types of experiences or more as they engage with a company. And so the key is to really start flipping things and to start saying, for a customer persona, what do we want the experience to look like? And starting there to do that experience design and start the understanding on what that experience might look like. And then translating into what are the different contributions from the different teams, where they bring their best skills forward and what should be automated in order to bring the best experience forward. So we try to flip it, really describe the experience and then bring the best skills forward. having the ability to look at how the data flows, looking at, the same systems at the same point in time definitely helps to do that well.
One thing that I'm super excited to talk with you about, because I think you are truly leading in this area, is a very strong aspirational goal around validated value and actually putting a number to it, aligning to it. I think that's the future. Obviously, in all the customer conversations we have in our customer value community, 1,000+ companies, cracking the code on value realization and getting credit for it is so powerful. Tell us about that initiative, Elisabeth, and where you're in the journey and where you want to go with this.
Yeah, absolutely. It's something we are very excited about, Chad, and this is the customer verified value. Because we can talk all day long about, what we provide and what we think the impact might be. But when it comes really with the customer's voice to say, you helped me with productivity improvements, with innovation improvements, with sustainability improvements, with experience improvements, things like that, nothing is more powerful than the customer expressing it in their own terms. So we were, as we, have the privilege to engage with all of our customers, we started to pilot a metrics we call customer verified value. And we started with the larger customers because we obviously, have a bit of a closer relationship there. And where it starts is, to your point previously on how we work across the different organizations, we establish with sales, what is it that the customer wants to accomplish from an outcome, from a value perspective. And we actually put a number against it. So the customer says, this is how much this is going to be worth to me in my operation. So I want to improve productivity by 15% or, whatever it might be. And that is something we continue to track then on a quarterly business review perspective, and the teams, having the conversation with the customer, where are we in that value generation? So we are moving far beyond, providing a tool or software or methodology. We are really having the conversation on, where are we in helping you to provide that productivity? And that's super powerful, in conversations with the customer, and giving the customer themselves the tool to talk about, how much the partnership with Autodesk has yielded in terms of impact to their own businesses.
Such a good point. Let's take that last point and dig into it a little bit, because so much of our customers' time may not be with us, right? So how are they telling that story when we're not in the room? And I guess in this verified value, you're arming them, you're empowering them to have these conversations within their own organizations and with their own internal stakeholders.
That's exactly right. And that is one of the areas, sometimes, you would wait until renewal time and then everybody gets into a scramble to try and look back. What are all the good things we had done the last year or 3 years or whatever the term was? This is kind of a continuous drumbeat, which allows to build up the momentum and gives the customer the tools to talk about, how do we build up that momentum? So we are trying to strengthen that partnership all around in a 360 way, if you wish, goes as well with us internally. I'm looking at where are we providing the most value and why, and how can we accelerate that? So it turns out to be a really powerful tool for us.
Elisabeth, you mentioned too one thing that I think sets you apart and Autodesk apart. We've got a couple other leaders like HP that are very adamant about this too, which is the concept of sustainability value, that there's different dimensions of value. We could have corporate value, which is financial. We could have job value, where we're helping somebody be more effective, personal value, which you've just talked about how you empower your champions. But you have the added dimension of helping your customers understand the sustainability impacts in working with Autodesk. Talk a little bit about that, if you could.
Yeah, we're actually, in a very privileged situation, as we do have technology, for example, for some of the industries to assess their carbon usage, as well as to do designs and building with, optimized carbon usage. So as you think, for example, about a building, the majority of the carbon usage is actually through the operate phase. So once the building is already in place, then, it matters on materials that have been used, insulation, the heating, the cooling, and all of that can be and is impacted significantly through the phase of the design of the building to say, which orientation am I choosing? What are the materials I'm choosing? How do I think about, the whole architectural design? So by pulling some of the calculation and the assessments of carbon usage into the design phase, we're actually providing tools where the customer can make those assessments before they make decisions. And that is very powerful, being able, to reduce carbon footprint actually quite dramatically in everything that our customers, plan and build.
I love that. I love that. We can't have a conversation without AI. So let's talk about AI. I have a different question, though. You know me to always try to mix it up a little bit. So my question for you today on AI would be, as Chief Customer Officer, AI is creating software faster than we can adopt it.
Mm-hmm.
How, as a Chief Customer Officer, do you see that kind of unrelenting drumbeat of new capabilities that are coming out and the challenge of getting the customer base to adopt at the speed at which it's being delivered?
That is a really good question, Chad, because by and large, adoption really is a successful adoption and change management is one of the key gating factors for customers to be able to drive value. It's not so much, about all the feature functionality and the technical capabilities, which of course have to be there, but the gating factor is, are customers able to bring it to life? And the short and the long answer is, customers are struggling to drive the innovation. Oftentimes they have processes today that still cater to a very different release cycle. There's still a lot of waterfall deployments. You spend a lot of time in, thinking about the solution, and then you have a rollout plan, and, eventually it lands at the targeted audience. I would say we must be past. We need to be past the waterfall deployment and really need to, for the deployment and change management, need to pick up similar practices like the engineering teams do with a more agile flow. And what that means, it's like an always on motion. It needs to be, for people that are leveraging the solutions and the capabilities, the opportunity that, there is an ongoing learning and an ongoing additional value flow that they can participate and need to participate in. So that's, I think, what we really need to call for, to say, if you're still using waterfall to roll out your technology, take a moment and think about it, because you're leaving so much innovation on the table. Because by the time you get to the person leveraging it, you missed 10 releases.
Yes, well put. It also seems like, tell me, it's a fair observation, Elisabeth, that in customer success leadership, sales leadership, we're always geared towards trying to align to the customer journey. But maybe that customer journey needs to get reimagined with AI. And I think about all the AI capabilities that Autodesk is coming out with. So it's not just, maybe in the past it was aligned to the journey. Is tomorrow's future not just align, but reframe or recreate the journey with the new workflows that AI will engender?
So I do believe AI is moving faster than, we probably imagined. So there's a lot of capabilities, and we are very active in our own operation to build AI capabilities into those workflows. And that allows us, to your point, to connect workflows that were strictly separate in the past. So I'll give you an example. In the past, you were probably troubleshooting, or you had a question, and then you opened a case and you were in that workflow, and it was either digital or human or what have you. What we're working to is really meshing that with learning journeys. So we are meshing troubleshooting with learning journeys now, and then we are meshing learning journeys with your own customer success story as you continue to increase proficiency. So there's much more ability now with the technology to weave these things together to provide, better outcomes for the customers, as well as more choice at the point when they need it, as opposed to keeping all these things separate. Where the road will take us, we will find out. But I will tell you, Chad, it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun being able, to play with the technology, leverage it, have a, pilot audience where we are trying things out and doing, agile and rapid development from there. It's a lot of fun.
I love your point about learning too, and the learning journey. I think I read State of Design and Make report 2024 that 77% of the respondents need or are visualizing upskilling in this new environment. I think that's really interesting. And I think Autodesk is taking a very proactive approach in enabling the learning and the training in ways, not just for customers, but for partners. Talk a little bit about how learning becomes a different dimension of value if they're coming to learn with Autodesk.
Yeah, it's such a great question. And you're exactly right. This is one of the key enabler for our customers. It starts actually at universities and colleges, right? So the next generation coming out should already be proficient in the technology. When you think about the next generation, they are all digital natives. They all, know what AI is. Like my kids told me the other day, like, Mom, did you not know we learned to write prompts in middle school? I'm like, okay, that's great. So it's a completely different generation, and they are looking to, explore and leverage the technology while being in their education. And that's something we are leaning in heavily with, partnerships and investments into those educational, be it community colleges or universities, to arm, the future workforce with capabilities. But of course, it doesn't stop there, right? So there is broader enablement that we are providing, and there's a whole set of things we are doing, all the way from, community engagements where anybody can, ask any question and being supported, all the way to investments we are making around digital learning and making that bite-sized and, easily accessible for everybody in their workflow. So because today you no longer learn like a big course or seminar and you go away for a week with other people in a room. That's more a thing of the past.
Yeah.
People have a different way of learning that is more integrated into their workflows, and then proficiency is built that way. So that's something we are leaning into heavily.
Talk a little bit about community and what it means for you as the Chief Customer Officer for Autodesk. How does the community both inform your roadmaps and your strategies, as well as cultivating that peer-to-peer learning that you want, and then ultimately how it drives towards commercial success for you?
Yeah, a community is such a big underpinning of how our customers work. And, we are very fortunate in Autodesk. We have a very vibrant community, and we have, the expert elite, which are, basically our best community participants, and have a significant impact with them providing answers and helping others. There is a sense of pride in the community to help each other out. And for anybody out there, as you think about community, it is an important and critical underpinning of the health of your customer base to have a vibrant community. So we, of course, learn as well from our community to see, what are some of the questions asked? What are some of the practical answers that people come up with that we didn't even think of? Because there are many ways to solve a problem. And, as you have a broad community approach, there are a lot of creative people out there that come up with answers to challenges. So there is a lot we are learning. And obviously, it's a joy to have such a vibrant community. It's fantastic.
One thing that I would love your perspective on is there's a lot of dynamic convergence occurring right now, not just with our customers, but within our own organizations. When you think about folks like pre-sale solution consultants now doing post-sales and roles getting converged in terms of, and maybe it's to the point earlier, Elisabeth, that we're trying to interlock in such a tight way to create that continuity of customer experience. When you look out for the leadership roles, revenue leadership roles in 2025 and going forward, and you think about the old stovepipes of CS, sales, marketing, what changes, what stays the same from your perspective going into the future around a different GTM go-to-market?
Yeah. I think you call it out exactly right. As we are pivoting to more of a life cycle view, our good old stovepipes, need to dissolve a little. I think there's still the crafts that people bring to the table that are, your primary craft at the right point in time, be it marketing, be it customer success, or be it sales. But I think the accountability changes. So, for example, I'm asking my teams, be it, technical success, be it customer success, be it consulting, to look at, how can we help the customer, to grow the business. So our motto within customer success is unlock value and drive growth. Now, one could say driving growth traditionally might have been sales, but the reality is that, as we are engaging with customers every single day, we get to ask that next question. We get to ask, what else would help you drive more results or more value? So I'm holding my team accountable for, not only customer satisfaction and, P&L and all the rest of it, but we are looking at net retention rates, keeping the customer, but as well asking that next question and helping to drive expansion. And with that, working hand in hand with the sales team, but really, looking at it more holistically.
That's so fascinating. So really you are driving towards a growth agenda within the CS work.
That's exactly right. And it turns out we are so well positioned because we do understand already what the customer is asking for and is looking for on a day-to-day basis. So we're calling it, between my sales counterpart and our team, we're calling it the small E expansion, which is like incremental value we can provide as opposed to the big E expansion, which will be, a larger project, a new site, and a whole new transformational initiative, a whole new whatever it might be with existing customers or adding new customers. So customer success definitely is looking at the small E expansion.
Love it. What is something, this is just top of mind, but I always love to ask leaders like yourself, what is something that you've recently changed your mind about?
That is a good question. I'd like to say, a different walk of life. I do a lot of travel for business, and I'm always very focused on packing my days with as much as I possibly can to meet with the teams, with the customers, with the partners, to speak with media, all of that. And with that, very focused on the agenda. And the last couple of times I gave myself permission to do something for joy as well. And it had a remarkable impact to actually, allowing me to do more because I was so uplifted by, doing something for joy, either at the beginning, middle, or end of the trip. So I can highly recommend it.
I love that answer. And why it's so, I'm probably wired very similar to you, where I feel like some of my self-identity is based on my productivity when I'm out there, but maybe I'll probably show up even better if I take some and enjoy it, or at least have a little rest, or don't overschedule, which is what we typically do. I love that answer.
Yeah, no, thank you. And I'll give you one example just for fun. I went to Tokyo just recently. And I love going, visiting customers, all that. I had very packed agenda, but I kept an air pocket to go and do a walk and a stroll through one of the fabulous gardens.
Mm-hmm.
And it created, it refreshed me so much mentally and energized me that I actually feel I was able to do more.
I love it.
So that was a really wonderful experience.
Okay, so we have two bookshelves in our backgrounds. Yours is far more expansive and littered than mine. So tell me what's something you're reading or have read that really has shaped some of your recent thinking.
I'm going to grab this one a little while ago because we talked about implementation and change management. And this is Switch, How to Change Things When Change is Hard. It's with Chip Heath and Dan Heath, which wrote a number of really fabulous books, which I can highly recommend. I think it does a really good job to frame out, on how to drive those change management implementations. And when you look at some of the themes you brought up, AI and transformation and convergence, they have change written all over them, right? And they are happening all at the same time. So I think as leaders, we need to be very proficient and, forward looking in how might I help the organizations, my partners, my customers, to drive through change. And that's a really good book.
Awesome. It's going to be on this bookshelf coming up. So, because you're right, it's so change is apparent in everything. It's constant. In fact, we sell change, and we all sell change in some respect of moving somebody from a current state to a desired state. Tell me, Elisabeth, we call this the voice of value because we love to hear the personal stories sometimes of folks on where they found their own unique value. And I'm a big believer that when you help others find their value, you find yours along the way in what you do special. What's that thing that you brought to this equation that is so unique and personal? When you think about a very successful career, globally all over the world, meeting with customers and partners and driving a large organization and where you are today, and you look back, where has been the unique value for Elisabeth? Where did you find it? How did you cultivate it? How did you flourish with it?
Such a great question. Well, I would say, I'm bringing us back to the beginning of our conversation around listening. I think one of my superpowers is the deep listening and understanding, with whom I'm engaging and talking with, what are the areas of impact? What are the areas of value? I think that's where it starts. And when I look back at my career, that was always, the first step on, inflection points in my career, deep listening and understanding where the value is. The second part is just a relentless appetite for transformation, to do things not just better, a little bit better, but dramatically better. And then connecting the two, saying, let's understand the value and the appetite to do things dramatically better. That creates, a multiplier force that, helps unlock so many things. And it's a lot of fun most days.
Wonderful answer. Thank you. I think I loved our conversation. I mean, we were pretty wide ranging from Notre Dame all the way through to where you found your unique value. But so maybe the larger under trust, transparency, and caring, how does that show up for you as you manifest it for your employees?
So part of it is, the toolkit we are building for our customer trust and the partner trust is not too dissimilar to what this toolkit is for the employee trust. It also starts with listening. So while we are all working for a company, we are bringing hopefully our whole selves to work, and then taking, really the deep listening and understanding for, the team members. What is it they are aspiring to? What are the outcomes they want to create for their lives, for their careers, and having that in mind. And then, creating an environment where we can have that transparent conversation and can have that dialogue accordingly. So I think it's the similar principles of transparency, of, care, of, resiliency, all of that, of listening. It's the same principles, but I think we need to be very thoughtful and purposeful to put them in action for our employee base as well.
That's a great one to end on. Elisabeth, thank you so much.
Thank you.